Well, there was a conscious effort to use acoustics in the writing process, as we used to in the old days, um, when we couldn't really afford the time or the studios to go in and write that way. And we would rent a little farmhouse out in the country somewhere for a couple of weeks. And that's how we wrote records like Farewell to Kings, for example. And Getty and I would write everything on a couple of acoustic guitars. So it's kind of going back to that um, more organic approach to writing. It's very obvious on an acoustic whether something works or not. And if it doesn't, you know right away. But if it does, it really connects with you, I think. At the time, too, before we started writing the record, I was playing a lot of acoustic at home and uh, went to a couple of really great shows. Went to see Tommy Emmanuel in Toronto and Stephen Bennett playing harp guitar. But the one that really stood out was the Tommy Emmanuel show. And it was an acoustic set that he did, just acoustic for that night. And it was mesmerizing. And the way he played and the dynamics of the instrument and the resonance of the instrument, all of that stuff just speaks to you in a different way than electric guitar does. And I just thought that for this whole writing project and the way this record was shaping up in our minds, it was really the right way to go. And always the intention was to replace most of the acoustics with electric. I mean, it was a guitar part, and it would become electric guitar parts. But as we built those tracks, the acoustic element became so important to the nature and character of the song. And it just seemed like the right thing to incorporate the acoustic with the electric in as many places as we could. Primarily, I used the uh, Garrison GC50. That's their concert single cutaway guitar. Garrison's, if you don't know who Garrison is, they're a small company out of Newfoundland in Canada, but they make a wonderful instrument. All the bracing on the inside of the guitar is made with composite materials and not wood. So it's an interesting sound to it and an interesting resonance to the guitar. And they're beautiful to play, and I really like them. And being Canadian, I like to, support the homeboys. And also one of their 12-string GC 50 guitars, a Gibson J150, a J55 tuned to a Nashville tuning, and a Larrivee, a small body Larrivee that I have that has a very bright, very clear, articulate sound to it. Well, first of all, I have a recording studio at home, and before we left for Allaire, I spent a few days just organizing things and getting set. I brought a bunch of heads into the control room and just tidied up and got organized. Being a Virgo, I have to do this, otherwise I go mental. So I was really looking forward to coming back and recording at my place. Getty and I on the flight down to Allaire, and we both had this conversation. He said, look, we're going for drums. I'll do as many bass tracks as I can, but then as soon as the drums are done, I want to go home and work from home. We got to Allaire, and it had such a great vibe to it. It was a wonderful place to play, and great staff, and the grooms were excellent. Everything about it was perfect for us. But of course, with doing my guitars at my place, I didn't bring anything. I brought a couple of guitars, a couple of acoustics, and a couple of amps. And fortunately, Nick brought all the stuff that he had. And they had lots of stuff there. And then we had stuff shipped down from home as well. But Nick had a couple of Marshall combos, a Marshall 20 and a Marshall 50 combo, 212s. We had a Bogner cabinet there. We had one of these guys, the Switchblade, which I made great use of, Triamp by Hughes and Kettner as well. We had an orange, vintage orange. We had a beautiful AC 30 that Nick owned, 1965. Sounded great. We used that for a lot of the cleaner tones, even the dirty, clean tones. We had a JC 120 there, a Rivera we had, and a Buddha, I think. So we had a real great selection of amps and some great vintage stuff. And I think that really helped us achieve the kinds of sounds that we wanted from the guitar. To my ear, a lot of the more rock stuff these days has a very similar character to it. it's almost, well, it's always like that. It's very popular, that rectifier with a PRS kind of combination, and it's great, but I wanted something a little different, something that was a little more classic in its character, really. You know what? That was primarily it, the Electric Mistress and the Mutron, for the effects that we used on the record. Any chorusing effects I either got on the JC120 or else I got it on the Switchblade. And I kind of am leaning towards that more these days, of playing pure tones and then adding something after, rather than running through the whole line and recording it that way. So there's a little more flexibility, and that's always a prudent course to take, I think, when you're recording. However, there were some songs where I wanted to get a particular effect, and of course we dialed it in. And I have to say the Switchblade is really great for that. It's got the effects on it are really, really good, and there's a great tone to that amp.